Salam Azərbaycanlarım. Bugün yanımızda Gürcüstandan təzəcə Azərbaycana gəlmiş feminist və queer aktivist Mari Kurtanidze var. Bugün onunla şəhər haqqında təəssüratlarını və Gürcüstanla Azərbaycandakı aktivizm arasındakı fərqləri soruşacağıq. Hi Mari, can you introduce yourself?
Hello. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me because I think it's very important to have this conversation, and thanks everyone for listening. So yeah, I'm Mari. I use pronouns she and they. Both. I identify as a queer feminist activist who has been involved in Georgian queer and feminist activism already more than 10 years. To be honest, since I was 16 years old, I think it's around 15 already. Time flies fast. Yeah, so and since then I tried to be involved in formal and non-formal activism, meaning like most of my working experience is related to NGO work, but apart from that I've been involved in non-formal groups, non-formal, non-hierarchical groups such as women's rights movement.
You are in Azerbaijan for the first time. Can you share your impressions during the few days you spent here?
Okay, well, I mean, I think it will be a little bit difficult for me to really say much because I don't believe that these couple of days are enough to give like some in-depth analysis. What I think is important is for us, for Georgians, but not only from the Caucasus, to realize how important it is to have connection with each other and to go beyond our own, I don't know, homes and, I don't know, just create these connections, because unless you are with unless you meet people, you engage, you talk, the information that we get on internet is just really superficial. So for me, these days were really crucial because, I don't know, I met lots of women's rights defenders and activists, and it was just very inspiring for me to hear all the stories and see how they fight for more justice. That here in Azerbaijan there are some powerful activists who do incredible work, even though it is so difficult. The circumstances does not allow, but just the way women's rights activists, feminist activists, queer activists try to navigate, try to fight the system, how they create the spaces, how they try to reach out and find each other. I think it's really inspiring. I think we have a lot to learn from you as well, because we are kind of used to more freedom in terms of, I don't know, we at least are allowed to have civil society and NGOs and everything, and here the spaces are so restricted. But even in these conditions, just think how you fight and create those resistance. For me, it was very inspiring to see.
You have met so many people in Azerbaijan, and what do you think? What are the differences between activism in Georgia and Azerbaijan?
Well, from what I've observed, even though, as I said, I didn't have much time, is that here most of the things still remain underground and restricted. So the ways you try to engage and to fight, just the strategies are different. In Georgia, because we don't have the civil society up until now has not been really that restricted to the level that you have here. So I think that's a major difference, that it's easier in Georgia to reach out to people, it's easier to find, and I think that just because we have more queer spaces and open spaces, it's easier to find each other. And then because we don't face persecution to that level, like we know that it can get tough, but I think that the level here is just much. So and even though I think that there are like huge differences, more, to be honest, I was focusing on similarities. Because I've observed how patriarchy works in different but somehow same way, that the struggles that we are going through in a way really resembled, because I was like, oh yeah, but we've been through this. Like, one obvious difference could be the legislation, that we have better legislation, that we have ratified Istanbul Convention, but Georgian women's movement and women's rights NGOs and feminists, for us it took, I don't know, around a decade to push for this legislative changes. And I think that it just took us also persistence. Like we were pushing every year with very concrete requests. Like we wanted for law to be changed. We also requested, basically, we always had one concrete request on each year, and I think that was a good strategy because we knew what we wanted, and our requests were not broad or something. It was always directed to concrete things that the government had to do. And this year we had also concrete requests. We wanted the law on rape to be adopted, and the whole demonstration was about this rape legislation. But unfortunately, as you see, our government does not give a fuck. In Georgia, consent does not exist in the legislation. So when women says no, I don't want to have sex, and the person still, violently pushes, rapes. We don't call it rape because in Georgian legislation, rape is defined only as violent act, and you should have bruises. But not all rape, as a consequence, has bruises. You know what I mean? And Georgian women's movement, we tried a lot to push for this change, and still there's nothing happening. But we have had some progress, to be honest, in legislation. Feminists fought throughout the years. To be more concrete, in 2014, the big group was established, Georgian Women's Movement, and thousands of women gathered together because we had 34 cases of femicide in that year. It was just terrible. And yeah, you are not part of Istanbul Convention, and I think that for us, at least for Georgia, up until now, we knew that for us European integration was important, and we used it. So civil society used this as a important standpoint or strategy. And for you, it's even more difficult because in that way you cannot really push, and also because of the restrictions towards civil society, it just becomes incredible here to fight, while in Georgia these spaces was not that. So we are now very scared because we feel that maybe we are becoming Russia or in a way also Azerbaijan because of this what government now wants to do us.
Can you talk about queer activism in Georgia?
So in Georgia, first ever demonstration on LGBTI rights happened in 2011. I think that was a year when LGBTI activists for the first time marked the space for themselves. And from that on, we kept protesting every year on 17th of May, which is International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, Aida Hobbit. So for us, this 17th of May becomes the most important day for every year. So basically, we would gather for months, all of us, all the NGOs who work on the issues and activists, and we would discuss our strategies, what we want to do. And it felt that it was the only things that we were doing, because for us by then it was very important to just come out for the public, to say that look, we are here, we exist, and the space is ours. This visibility politics is a crucial and important subject for us to discuss, because I believe that it can be an important tool, but then we need to reflect on what are the pros and cons of really putting all your energy into visibility politics. Does it serve the purpose that we want, or what we actually do with it? And I think that it's important to also put your energy in realizing that maybe instead of creating bridges, we were burning them. Maybe instead of getting closer to society, we were increasing this divide, because somehow, I don't know, I realized that there was this division between us who were progressive and the whole rest of society was regressive, and this dynamic and this duality, I just don't believe in that. I believe in approaching to people. I believe in talking to them, saying, look, I'm here and I deserve to live in society freely. I think that lots of queer activists in Georgia just realized that we needed different strategies. But most important thing for us that happened throughout these years was creating lots of safer spaces. Like there's not a single techno club in Georgia that does not organize queer night there. Well, because capitalism works like that. I mean, you want to have more customers and then you don't want to be marked as less progressive. So all the clubs starting, you know, like this cool, so we need to organize. Anyway, so...
How does society approach feminism?
Well, society considers feminists to be lesbians. They hate feminists in general, and feminism as a word has been demonized and ridiculed, and the general public attitude has been like negative. But we also see the shift. So over the years, over the 10 years of feminist activism in Georgia, we see that it gets better. So it definitely gets better, and I think that it's mass media, Facebook, Instagram, but also new TV shows and everything, it really contributes to this shift. And what I know for sure that is this change is inevitable. They cannot stop it, because when I see younger generation, they already have completely different mindset without even having to go through these fights, because it's there. I mean, those people, those, I don't know, I call them haters, or those people who do not realize what patriarchy is, they're gonna still have to do it, like at some point, because this change is inevitable. I see this change with my own eyes, and when I compare 10 years to now, I see that we are so much progressing in so many ways. We just need to keep up the fight, because queer future is inevitable. It's not, it can't be stopped. The change is on its way. It may take time, it might be difficult, but it's on its way. So just keep up the fight.
Do you have any message to our feminist and queer community?
Yes, I do. My message would be that resistance comes in many different forms and shapes. Sometimes we don't see it, but just because we don't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not powerful. It just is important to realize that we need to keep this resistance. Finding each other is a way of resisting. Holding each other's hands is a way of resisting. And then one day, when time comes, we're just gonna, I don't know, explode and we will win. I think that was something that we saw in Georgia a couple of days ago, because most of us had lost our faith and hopes and everything, but then there we realized that even though government was pushing and throwing us and was, I don't know, poisoning us with gas, we were still getting back there because we realized how many of us were there. I mean, I think that the trickiest thing is and the scariest thing is to lose hope. And we should not do that, because that's when they win. So let's not. The thing that I want to say is that we need to keep hope, because that's when they win, when they make us lose it. And we just need to keep resisting in many different forms and shapes. And self-care, collective care is also resistance. Finding each other and dancing together is also resistance. It's just not giving up.